The time has come to defend Adrien Agreste, so consider me part of the Adrien defense squad. It's no secret that Adrien is one of the most complex characters of the entire show. Most of the plot and overarching story revolves around him, his family, and the piles upon piles of secrets that have been kept under wraps for the better part of a decade in canon. So it's only fair to make a video essay on our favorite Sunshine Boy. Adrien's development throughout season 4 is not one that a lot of people were expecting, and with season 5 already being kicked off, thank you Gloob for that, I think it's about time we sit down and have a long discussion about Adrien's character. So in this video brought to you today by the one and only your girl, the cartoon hotspot, we are going to be discussing Adrien's character growth in season 4, in particular the nuances behind some of his actions in the latter season, revolving around his codependency issues, self-perception, basically how he views himself, and how his relationship with Ladybug throughout the show has changed his perception of other people and his own values. But I can't take credit for everything. Aurora, one of my best friends, helped me out in the making of this video. She has such a great way of articulating her words better than I can, and she truly understands this character we all love. So be sure to follow her on Twitter at AuroraOnRose, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. For returning subscribers, welcome back. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and click that bell button for post notifications. Without further ado, let's begin. First, we'll begin with Truth and Lies. These two episodes tag team together in showcasing the same day in two different perspectives. It's interesting how they're called Truth and Lies, even if it's from different perspectives. Both Adrien and Marinette face the truth of their own situation, but lie so that they can protect their secret lives, aka being a superhero. Of course, I'm going to be focusing more on lies since this episode is written in Adrien's point of view. And whilst I do have my grievances with lies, it does portray Adrien in a very different light, especially his relationship with Kagami.
Do you love me too?
Excuse me?
Now we all know Adrien would never intentionally hurt someone. This episode discusses how miscommunication and failing to express how you feel in any given circumstance can be the demise of any relationship, particularly romantic ones. Adrien is simply doing his best and what he believes to be the right thing. Adrigami was a one-sided relationship, but that doesn't mean Adrien was completely uninterested and revolted by the prospect of being with Kagami. Rather, he was hesitant and afraid because Kagami was his first girlfriend, but not his first love. In contrast to Luke and Annette's miscommunication issue, which stemmed from Marinette's guardian duties not allowing her to be completely honest with Luca about unexplainable disappearances in the middle of their dates, Adrigami's miscommunication problem was rooted in Adrien's inability to speak up when it came to matters of the heart. Because of this miscommunication, as well as his constant abandonment of Kagami and refusal to allow her to see him for him, their relationship failed miserably when neither of them truly knew the other person on a deeper level. Yes, Shadomoff's increasing number of Akuma attacks played a significant role in their breakup, but combine that with Adrien's mixed signals, and you've got a huge mess that left Kagami thinking Adrien was avoiding her, when really, Adrien was trying to avoid confronting his own feelings. It's amusing and intriguing because Marinette is generally the one who avoids confrontation. Truth and Lies kinda switches their roles, with Marinette being the one to approach Luca and break up with him, whereas Kagami breaks up with Adrien, when Adrien is usually the more forward one. Adrien doesn't mean any harm, but he's so used to not talking about his feelings because of the environment he grew up in, where his feelings, voice, and opinions were always dismissed, that instead of simply telling Kagami that he's still not sure what he wants, which is perfectly fine, he sort of accidentally gave her the impression that he was 100% committed to the relationship. To reiterate, none of this is Kagami's fault. Adrien trusts Kagami like he trusts Ladybug. The problem is that Adrien doesn't trust himself because he was never allowed to make mistakes or make his own decisions. He was raised with the idea that he has to be perfect and that there is no room for mistakes. So how can he trust himself when the only thing he's been taught is that he can't rely on himself? As a result, the ending scene takes a whole new meaning.
You know the difference between us and the rest of the world, milady? We can't be completely honest with each other. We keep secrets and sometimes we have to lie. But we always trust each other.
Overdependency. I will come back to this point later on in this video essay, but for now, make a mental note of it. Let's talk about Optigami and Sentibubbler. Optigami is the mid-season finale of season 4, and if I'm being honest, it's one of the strongest episodes of the entire series. Optigami is the episode that really kickstarts Adrien's development and where we start to see the current situation in a different light, followed by Sentibubbler. As we know, in these 2 episodes, Cat Noir sat on the sidelines during the Akuma battle, Optigami being the reason he wasn't able to enter the building where the action was taking place, and in Sentibubbler, Rena Rouge was the MVP of the episode. The plan simply did not include Cat Noir. But after watching these episodes, I sat down and asked myself, why is this a problem now? Cat Noir has been absent from battles on numerous occasions throughout seasons 1, 2, and 3. So what's new? And here's our answer.
Cat Noir, tell me, what
You think about my new role as guardian?
If it doesn't change things between us, then I'm good with it.
Cat Noir had nothing to lose before, and I'd even go as far as to say he treated being a superhero like a game. We all know that for Ladybug, it's never been a game. Marinette, unlike Adrien, finds being a superhero a burden. And while Adrien is the most emotionally intelligent and empathetic character of the show, he doesn't realize that it's not a game for Ladybug. So when she was appointed guardian, he realized, oh wow, things might actually change. And that change might not be for the better. Change is frightening, especially since things were going so well for him before. Ladybug's newly found role as guardian means that she now calls the shots, often without consulting Cat Noir as we see this season. We know Ladybug deeply cares about Cat Noir, and the only reason she's pushing him away is to protect him, but doing so is causing a rift in their relationship. This is the first time Adrien feels the abandonment he feels from his father come directly from Ladybug. Cat Noir isn't used in the battle in Sentibubbler, and he has to sit back and watch Rena and Ladybug fix everything. You can probably imagine how frustrating this is for Cat Noir, and when Rena first calls to tell him that he isn't needed in the plan at all and that it's a 2-person plan, he becomes enraged because Ladybug and him are supposed to be the duo. They're supposed to be the unstoppable force. This reinforces his feelings of abandonment because he holds Ladybug in such a high regard and trusts her with everything in him, but he feels the power imbalance that he was afraid of. Reverting back to that line in Truth, if it doesn't change things between us, then I'm good with it, he says. Adrien is a person who dislikes change. He's comfortable with where he is because it's the only sense of normalcy he has in his life. His relationship with Ladybug has always been constant, something he can rely on whenever he needs an escape from his home life and from always being perfect. This is the episode in which Adrien begins to see Ladybug in a completely different light. Adrien, as we all know, does not like being lied to or being kept in the dark about things. It's the reason he's become frustrated in the past to the point where he's almost quit several times. This episode is all about how miscommunication can lead to disaster. Nino suspects Alia of cheating on him with Cat Noir and becomes upset because he believes he's been lied to and used. This parallels how Adrien feels when Nino tells him, in a fit of rage, that he and Alia are Carapace and Rena Rouge. Adrien's entire world is crumbling around him right now. Adrien realizes that he's been lied to. He is hurt that Ladybug is keeping secrets from him, but he still does what she asks. By the end of the episode, he feels he can't trust her with his true feelings, because if she doesn't trust him enough to be honest with him, why should he trust that she'd understand his feelings when Adrien doesn't even understand his own feelings? And this brings me back to my point about overdependency. I've previously stated in several videos that the cause of Lady Noir's miscommunication in season 4 was not because Marinette doesn't trust Cat Noir, it's because she doesn't trust herself. But what if I told you that Adrien feels the same way? They are yin and yang after all. Adrien has complete faith in Ladybug. Adrien trusts Ladybug with his whole life. He doesn't trust himself. And the minute Ladybug broke that trust that he's been clinging onto, he didn't trust himself to be able to confront her and tell her about his feelings, which is exactly why he denies anything being wrong when Ladybug asked him by the end of the episode. Adrien seems to blame himself for a lot of things that are simply out of his control by relying on the explanations presented to him. He has a lot of self-esteem issues, and we need to start talking about them. In his mind, Ladybug doesn't trust him because he's probably done something wrong. He believes that despite his devotion to her, he is insufficient as a partner. He comes to that conclusion despite the fact that it is far from the truth. But he's forced to believe it because he doesn't have any other option or explanation. And I know I'm not reaching too far or looking too deeply because my evidence is here.
It's all my fault. You were perfect as always. Night Owl is right to want to confiscate my miraculous. I left Paris without telling you. I ruined everything.
Yes, I understand that Cat Noir kind of screwed up in the New York special, but his notion that Ladybug has always been the perfect one and that he is the one holding her back is just so wrong. Ladybug never said anything like that. Nobody said anything like that. That was only said by him. Cat Noir suffers from low self-esteem. He's so quick to dismiss, minimize, and criticize himself, which stems from Gabriel's treatment of him, and he projects that onto his life as a superhero, believing that Ladybug doesn't trust him or need him because he doesn't trust himself at all. Adrien is visibly down in the dumps and he feels like he's just going through the motions at this point. There are no puns or energetic comedic lines, it's just him wanting to get it over with. You can tell that Ladybug is trying to fill the void with their natural banter, but none of it is working. When he's asked what he wanted to be when he was a kid, he has no answer and he genuinely doesn't know. The question weighs in on him for the entire episode, and when he's caught by Wishmaker, they convince him to find out what his childhood dream is, so he lets himself get hit, and the outcome is, when I was a kid, I wanted to be what my parents wanted me to be. Subtle hint towards him being a sentient being. Aside from that, this proves that Adrien has no idea who he is or what he wants to be. It's the reason he was so depressed at the career fair earlier in the episode. Adrien has never been given the chance to be himself because everything was planned for him. He was never given the opportunity to trust himself, to make mistakes and to learn from them. I cannot emphasize how dangerous this is for children. Kids and teenagers are expected to make mistakes and poor decisions as long as they don't have lifelong impacts. Even adults are permitted to do so, but Adrien was not. He had no say in any aspect of his life until he chose to sneak out and try to go to school in the Origins episode. This is the point at which Adrien decides to focus on himself rather than the anger and frustration he feels towards Ladybug. He decides to go on a journey of self-discovery in order to discover the true him. Now guys, this might be one of the most hated episodes of the entire season, primarily because it's yet another what if episode. The main theme of this episode is exemplifying why Ladybug and Cat Noir still don't and can't know each other's identities. Suhan decides enough is enough and forces Ladybug to reveal Cat Noir's identity to him, which she obviously does not know due to the rules established in season 1. Ladybug devises a scheme in which Viperion learns Cat Noir's name, and when Ladybug tells him that she believes they should reveal their identities, Adrien is initially hesitant. He is stunned, and rightly so. And I believe Adrien feels seen right now, and that's because Ladybug has been paying attention to how he feels, even if, unbeknownst to him, it's all a lie. When he tells her his name is Adrien Agreste, she laughs because they're completely different and that there's no way Adrien and Cat Noir could be the same person. That is, until he de-transforms and reveals himself to be Adrien Agreste. But I like to look at this specific line. Adrien explained,
It's never easy to show your true self to someone. You wonder what the other person will think of you, if they'll like you. It's hard for me too, you know. It was awful having to hide Cat Noir from you. I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Now, I find it so interesting that this episode comes right before Kuro Neko, which is the episode that was really focused on Adrien and his journey of self-discovery. But since we're on Ephemeral right now, bear with me. I really like the nuance in this line. It was terrible having to keep Cat Noir hidden from you. Adrien has always thought of himself as two different people throughout the series, and I believe this is due to the identity barrier. As I previously stated, the mask is both a blessing and a hindrance. It's a blessing in that it gave Adrien freedom, but it's also a hindrance in that it prevented him from being his true self in both forms. He's neither Adrien nor Cat Noir, he's both. Adrien has subconsciously concealed his superhero identity when he is a civilian. It's almost as if he used the mask as both a defense mechanism and an excuse to not show people who he truly is out of fear. In other words, he's fiercely protective of his Cat Noir side because it's the only thing he can be free of his father's influence and control. As a result, he simply became accustomed to putting on a show. Adrien can be cocky, flirtatious, and goofy, but he's afraid to show that side to people because he doesn't know if they'll accept him, goofiness and all. I mean, can you blame him? Two bad experiences, and I can totally understand why he'd make that judgment. Gabriel doesn't even give him the time of the day, and Kagami was far from impressed when he was goofing about. He'd rather not take that risk. But of course, when you keep up an act for so long, it gets tiring and draining. He wants to be free. So the minute he revealed his identity, it felt like a weight lifted off of his shoulder, and he admits that, which is exactly why he wasn't too bothered that Ladybug did not reveal her identity. He was just so happy that he finally got to show her who he truly is, even if he hasn't quite figured it out yet, and that's okay. It's much easier to discover yourself when you're not busy trying to hide a part of yourself. You become open and transparent. You can't learn anything if you don't make mistakes and take risks, and if you're always playing it on the safe side. Adrien is super understanding when Ladybug feels madly awkward because he knows firsthand what that experience is like. Adrien has never liked the identity rule, so let's get that out of the way. He's always believed that if you're going to have to learn to trust someone, they should be able to see you for who you are. And I get the impression that he believes they would be a better superhero team if they had known each other's identities from the start, and I fully agree. From this point forward, we're given a montage of Marinette seeing Cat Noir everywhere she goes, effectively establishing the "everywhere I go, I see his face" meme. Luca tells her that it can be discomforting to discover that someone you admire is different from what you expected. Marinette begins to approach the situation differently, seeing a more nuanced side of Adrien that she never really allowed herself to see before. I'm a firm believer that you attract what you project, and I believe this episode conveys that message effectively. Adrien begins making more jokes in class as soon as he reveals his identity, and we see both Cat Noir and Adrien in him. In other words, he's letting go of the desire to be either one or the other. He's just being himself. He's both of them, and everyone accepted it. And once Marinette got over her initial shock, Marinette accepted it as well and concluded that all of the reasons why she loves Adrien are the exact same reasons why she loves Cat Noir. Another aspect of this episode that I won't go into too much detail is related to the theme of control. The theme of control and obedience to one's master is a power dynamic, and this show frequently employs this. And this demonstrates how Adrien as a person is not permitted to be anything other than a perfect son, who is exactly what his parents want him to be, a mold of perfection. Finally, we're talking about my favorite episode of the season, Kuro Neko. I cannot begin to tell you guys how much I love this episode. Like the concept of your personal identity, and this episode diving into Adrien's mentality and self-perception, whilst also touching on Ladybug's trauma of Cat Blanc. Oh, brilliant. Love it, love it, love it. The episode starts off with Adrien missing the battle yet again, and when he rejoins the team, there's very awkward tension between him and Ladybug. Well, the tension is made up in his head. Ladybug actually didn't really think anything of it until he kept asking her if she needed help getting the miraculous back. Despite her protest that it is the Guardian's responsibility, he insists, highlighting Adrien's codependency issues. The unfortunate thing is that Ladybug is under so much stress that she is unable to be there for him in ways that he needs. She is usually very receptive and emotionally sensitive. She's able to pick up on when something is wrong, but here she is so enwrapped in her own thoughts, and because of this, Ladybug lashes out at him, and this causes him to fall deeper into his rut of feeling like he doesn't belong, feeling like he's useless. And it's the final breaking point for him to decide to quit. Now, I said this before, and a lot of you did not like what I had to say, so I'm still gonna say it again. Slower, so take it however you want, just please don't twist my words, then attack me for things that I didn't say.
And by the way, I have a question, and don't fight me because I know how you girls like to tussle.
So here's the tea. Adrien is a very selfless character, but his selflessness can be selfish at times. This episode exemplifies this. Yes, you can do something, and you may not intend for it to come across a certain way, but what ultimately matters is how the other person perceives it. Adrien chose to quit. He made that decision. And I completely understand why, because I honestly would have done the same thing had I been in his position. It's not his fault that he doesn't understand what Ladybug is going through, because she isn't communicating either. But his decision to give up put Ladybug in a worse position. This has a knock-on effect where Marinette has to find a new Cat Noir to replace him, which is a very risky move because Shadow Moth is getting stronger by the day. So finding a new partner who doesn't know you and you won't have the chemistry until you've worked together for a few months isn't very smart, is it? But I'd like to discuss why giving up his miraculous is both selfless and selfish. Keep in mind that I'm speaking as if I'm this character, so from now on, everything I say will be from their point of view and where these characters are coming from, rather than my own. From Marinette's perspective, Cat Noir hasn't been communicating his feelings, so this sudden need of wanting to help her collect the miraculous is so random. She's like, why are you so bent on helping me when many times before I've been the one to collect the miraculous? She doesn't know it's because Adrien is literally psyching himself out and that he thinks he's not needed at all. Keeping in mind, there have been numerous times where Ladybug has said she needs Cat Noir. He keeps her grounded. He picks her up when she falls over. He encourages her. He's everything you could ask for in a friend and in a partner. So when he gives up his miraculous, she feels hurt, and it's a little selfish considering she's reassured him so many times. As someone who relates to Adrien, I understand the feeling of doubting every word people say. It's a low self-esteem issue, but eventually you have to realize it's all in your head. Ladybug cannot keep holding his hand. He has to realize that he is needed. Maybe, just maybe, if he addressed his issues with her keeping secrets from him, they'd have avoided the situation. And don't get me wrong, Marinette in this episode is a little selfish too, despite her being selfless. And I will analyze this in my next video on Marinette's arc in season 4, part 2 to this video, so keep an eye out for that. Luckily, Plague has the idea that there is another holder that Master Fu originally considered, and convinces Marinette that they have it under control. Obviously, there is no other holder, and Plague returns to Adrien to give him his miraculous back, only to discover that Adrien is suffering from the worst depression of his life. I feel like a lot of people skipped over this scene, which showcases Adrien's mental state in a really cool way. It's the only way you can tell what he's feeling and going through on the inside. Because his actions were both selfless and selfish, but he most likely blames himself for everything that happened. He feels as if he could have done more. He should have showed up. He should have pushed aside his feelings. And this is where Plague tries to cheer him up and devises a new plan, a new persona, a Cat Noir revamp, if you will. They're giving Adrien the opportunity to try something different. Adrien is reluctant at first because he feels dishonest, but he wants to help in the best way he can. So he agrees. Throughout the episode, Adrien fights an internal battle of finding his true self. We learn that every aspect of him is a mask, and even as we, the viewer, don't know the real him. When he transforms into Catwalker, he adopts a persona that's a lot like his Adrien persona, but even more clean-cut and perfect. He's the total package, actually. Respectful, kind, encouraging, extremely intelligent, and most importantly, a person that she can count on, just like Cat Noir. Ladybug finds all of these attributes really attractive. It's really the first time she lets go just a little bit and allows someone else to take most of the control.
You take care of everybody equally, Ladybug. Now I want to take care of you.
This episode showcases so much of the potential that Adrien has as a hero and as a character. When plan after plan fails, Catwalker realizes that this partnership isn't working, and this is beautifully emphasized through Ladybug struggling to use her lucky charm effectively. It's a perfect example of show, don't tell, or better, professionally known to screenwriters as exposition. Ladybug struggles to use her lucky charm properly because it only really works when her and Cat Noir are together or when she's alone, depending upon the circumstance. Her and Cat Noir are the duo. They work well as a team because they just do. Cat Noir is himself with her and Ladybug is herself with him. It's them being honest with each other. Their chemistry is on point when neither of them are being pretentious. In order to work with someone, you have to be open and transparent. It's the foundation of a true friendship and partnership. When honesty and trust are lost, the chemistry and ability to work effectively as a team is lost. And when Adrien realizes the plan simply isn't working, he understands that it's because he can't pretend to be something he's not, and that Ladybug will always need him and appreciate him for him, pun-loving goofy cat that he is. He's gotten the closure that he needs. The takeaway for him in this episode is that neither Cat Noir or Adrien are really the real him, because he's both of them. He shows up to their meeting spot the next day as Cat Noir and they apologize. Ladybug reassures him that she still needs him even though she may not need him all the time, and that he's valued, but she needs him with her. And now we've arrived at the season's conclusion. These are the episodes where everything that has happened throughout the season comes together at once. We learned that Adrien and Lila are going on a trip around the world, which Adrien did not agree to. And this is yet another instance in which Adrien does not have control over his life and is unable to make his own decisions. Every time he tries to defend himself, he is silenced or made to feel irrational for having legitimate feelings and concerns. Fast forward to when they're at school. Adrien pretends to be excited about the trip, whilst Marinette is the only one who notices how unhappy he is. He soon confides in her and, under the influence of risk, tells her how he truly feels about his situation. Marinette and Adrien become closer as a result of this experience, and when Adrien returns home to pack his belongings, he is encountered by Felix, who claims to be here to help Adrien, when in fact he has his own plans. Adrien's problem, according to Felix, is that he must stop doing what his father tells him to do.
Freedom is something you make, Adrien. For starters, you've got to stop doing everything your father tells you to.
Now, this isn't the first time he's been told to disobey his father. In fact, many of his classmates have told him to do so. But aside from the fact that Adrien is under his influence, what makes this moment unique? Adrien is in a vulnerable state, desperate to get out of the situation, and here comes his cousin to set him free. Adrien may not be able to stand up to Gabriel, but Felix can, so they swap places. Have you ever noticed that whenever Adrien is told to stand up to his father, his first response is, "I can't." Emphasis on the word can't. Remember, the words can't and won't have different meanings. Mentally, Adrien cannot stand up for himself because physically he is unable to, due to him being a senti being. Someday I'll write a detailed analysis describing the genius of the Senti Monster storyline. Kagami unexpectedly calls him while he is sitting on a park bench with Plag trying to figure out what to do. And this is the point at which Adrien decides to take charge of his life, simply because Kagami is correct. He cannot allow others to control him. He needs to be his own person. His entire arc, like Marinette's, is about control. Whereas Marinette's arc is more about letting go of the desire for control, Adrien is about taking control. They're on the same journey. When he enters his house, he goes straight to his father's office, only to find out that he's not there, and the episode ends with Adrien finding Felix's eyeglass on the floor. In Strikeback, we pick up right where we left off with Adrien finding the eyeglass. He gets interrupted with Strikeback attacking, and he immediately transforms. When he meets up with Ladybug, they mutually want to get this over with as fast as possible. Because they're both under the influence of risk, they're not really making the best choices, and they're not thinking clearly, which causes them to get into an extremely heated argument, where in Adrien's perspective, all of his issues and things that he's been forced to bottle up the entire season explodes. These are the effects of poor communication. It leads to things being said that you probably don't really mean. Kuro Neko addressed the core of Adrien's problem, but not the trigger, which is Ladybug keeping secrets from him. The things that were said in this argument were all out of anger, and most importantly, out of fear of losing the other. Both Adrien and Marinette perpetuated a situation whereby both of them are not being open and honest because they're trying to do what's best for the other person, when in reality, it's what pushes them to be further and further away from each other. Adrien is in an extremely vulnerable state after this, and that's when the rest of the team comes into the picture. Ladybug tells Cat Noir not to help in fear of him making rash decisions with such a destructive energy, otherwise known as his cataclysm. He ignores her advice because he's sick and tired of letting people tell him what to do, who to be, and how to act in any given circumstance. Fast forward to where Felix is still impersonating Adrien, and now has the dog Miraculous. Adrien overhears the conversation between Felix and Ladybug, and she tells him that she knew he was perfect for the job, and they pound it. This completely breaks Cat Noir's heart because he feels like he just ruined the only real relationship he had. But at the same time, he's extremely angry that he's quite literally being replaced, and ironically, by a dog. I'm sorry guys, that part of the script was not written by me. I hate Aurora. Replaced by a dog. That is so funny.
That is funny.
That is so funny. Anyways, when the mission is over, Adrien goes home only to be paid a surprise visit by Ladybug asking for the dog Miraculous back. Adrien puts the pieces together to discover that she gave the Miraculous to Felix. These next series of events make Adrien see Ladybug's inner torment and sees her fall into panic. She's in such an emotional state that she doubts every sense of reality as it starts to completely fall apart for her. Adrien tells her, if you're going to trust me once, please let it be this time. The hidden meaning behind this is that he now knows that she's been literally torturing herself by pretending to have it all together, pretending to have it all under control, forcing herself to tackle this huge burden all alone and not allowing anyone to help her. He's literally saying that he knows that she doesn't trust him. How could you though? She literally got tricked by someone who looks exactly like him. I'd be scared too, but Adrien is urging, begging her that if she's going to trust him at least once, let it be this very moment where he's promising to protect her and be there for her. As he closes the door to the bathroom, all he hears is Ladybug's endless sobs, and just as he makes the decision to damn it all and open the door, she's gone. But he knew exactly where she'd be though. It is their spot after all. The spot holds so much significance, especially in this moment where Cat Noir comes to her rescue. If there's one thing for sure, Adrien is always going to be there for Ladybug, come hell or high water. He has a new sense of understanding and even relates to how she feels with being confined in a job that you never asked for. He understands that it's never been about Ladybug not trusting him. He realizes now that all along, she didn't trust herself. The only reason why someone could possibly want to establish control is because they don't trust themselves to let things play out. They're afraid of slipping up, and Adrien has personally been there. This is where we see how much of an empath he is. He is able to put himself in Ladybug's headspace and shoes and put aside his anger and resentment because he now knows from personal experience what it's like to not trust yourself, and that Ladybug's behavior wasn't intended to hurt him in any shape or form. He makes a promise to be there for her and never make her feel alone ever again. This is him growing into his own person. This is him developing as a character, making vows to never let what happened to him growing up happen to the person he cares about. So we talked about a lot in this video, and hopefully you have a better understanding of Adrien's character. I personally have grown to love him and appreciate layers to his complexity. Special thanks again to my best friend Aurora helping me write this video essay, and special thanks to my other best friend Harriana Hook, the captain, helping me edit this. Of course, this effort can only mean something if you guys help me out by liking this video, sharing it and commenting down your thoughts. I could really use the support. Be sure to follow me on my social media, links left down in the description box below. But that's all for now. What are your thoughts on Adrien's arc this season? Feel like there's something I didn't mention in this video? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down in the comments below. But as for today, that's it from me, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!